Hey everybody, it's Ryan with another video for you. I'm here with the Cyberpunk 2077 review you didn't ask for, didn't want, and probably didn't start watching on purpose unless you're my girlfriend. Or possibly a friend who just felt bad for me. Or maybe your finger slipped. That's what we'll tell everyone. Your secrets are safe with me, don't sweat it. If you're watching a video of mine for the first time, which face it, you probably are, unless you're a regular viewer, I do reviews, analysis, commentary, highlights, and sometimes news. I try to release regular content for your beautiful eyeballs and your fantastical ears. I want you to listen to the beautiful sound that is my voice. I'm kidding, I'm not that vain. So here we are, a review you didn't ask for a game we all wanted to be great for a channel that has variable quality, video to video. I'm being self-deprecating here so you can tell right off the bat that your words can hurt me. But obviously being nice is preferable. Cyberpunk 2077, I want to tell you before I continue, so you know my bias up front. I was and am a big CD Projekt Red fan, and I'm a big fan of their work. The Witcher 2 and The Witcher 3 are some of my favorite games of all time. Now when I heard about Cyberpunk years and years ago, long before Ryan decided to make a YouTube channel where he would be talking about it, I was sold. I knew I was gonna get it and play it and love it. And I did my best as I got closer to launch to stay as ignorant as possible and not get myself all hyped up about the game. I pre-ordered it, patiently waited, and here I am. I want you to know that up front so you can know that my bias, or what my bias is, before I go into my thoughts about the game. It's important to me that you know how much of a simp I am for this title, and CD Projekt Red before I give any critique. I honestly couldn't live with myself if you didn't know that I was sucking at the teat of a major developer. I realize the visual is tough to swallow and ignore, and I can imagine your face right about now is like, ugh. Gross. Knowing that, let's get into the review. For those of you who don't know my review style, it's just me with a somewhat loose format. I try to go with what I liked in a somewhat sequential order and then give you what I didn't like or thought was okay. It might seem rambly, but it's just because I'm excited to see you and I want to tell you everything that's been going on. Get comfortable, maybe grab a snack, grab some popcorn, I don't know, do whatever you like. And before I go any further, really quickly, I just want to say that this is going to be a full review. So, spoiler alert, I will talk about the state of the game as far as performance, but I am not going to be trashing it completely. Cyberpunk, wow. So, let's start with the story. I think that's easily Cyberpunk's strongest and most attractive feature. It tells a compelling narrative from start to finish, and it feels cinematic and well thought out. I cared about all the characters in my journey, including my own. Now, without spoiling anything, it really does insert you into the narrative organically in a way. It never feels like it's forced or that they're pushing the story on you just for the sake of giving you a main plot. It feels integral to the experience that you go through the story and that you experience it. I said experience twice. That's how experience heavy this game is. Experience. CD Projekt Red made The Witcher 3 for some players unbearably long with its story. I beat it, but I can tell you I thought I beat that game like four times. Every time I thought it was ending, it continued. Then it was ending again. And it continued. And that's not a ditch on The Witcher 3. I love that game. Probably more than my girlfriend. Second thought. She might be watching this, so definitely more than her. But Cyberpunk is shorter and much more succinct, in a lot of ways better for it. Less room for filler content, and each quest feels like you're unraveling part of a mystery that goes deeper than you could have imagined. One thing I may mention a few times throughout this video is how, at least in the story, Cyberpunk seems content with just giving you the finger when it comes to tantalizing or balls to the wall choices. It's kind of a couple shades of a choice or your character saying something slightly different. It isn't until the end that the game gives itself the space to breathe and open itself up to different choices and different variants. But even then, the game's over at that point, so you can't really enjoy it for too long. Now this means it'll hurt the game as far as maybe what you want from it. I was expecting more, but maybe you don't expect that and you just want to be told a good story start to finish. I have some nitpicks, of course, on certain parts of the story and the ending, but Overall, I felt it was a good story with well thought out and finely written characters, and they had believable motivations and intentions. Now, another part of the game that really shines is its side quest lines. These range from small, short stories to long character arcs that have a lot of moving parts, and they take several hours to complete. They take characters from the main story that fall beyond the wayside, or by the wayside, after their role and bring them back with their own compelling arcs and even side stories. Whereas a lot of games, they have their supporting characters and they kind of just have their role and then they go. Cyberpunk wants you and invites you to spend more time with them outside of your main objective. And it brings the characters dimension and life that would be lost otherwise, or in a lesser title, Lost. You also get more choices, something lacking in the main story. It's not always dramatic, but it feels genuine and powerful regardless, because you feel more like you're influencing characters and building relationships with them. And seriously, yeah, I'm gonna keep using this term, so sue me. But who doesn't simp for Pan Am? Seriously, come on, bro. Speaking of, I might do another video on it, but I just want to say the romances in this game are god-awful. The characters themselves are great, their quest lines are great, but something happens right after you complete those quest lines. Nothing. Now, I know, I'm not like a I need romances in my RPGs, or even I need to get laid in games kind of person. But Cyberpunk and its handling of romance is emblematic of every criticism of every BioWare game's inclusion of romances. Beyond the scene where you talk to them and then smash booties, nothing else happens. You can talk to them a tiny bit and stand near them so you can get some time with them or get new dialogue, but it's not much. They're just kind of stuck in a state where the game barely wants to acknowledge I'm dating this person or in a relationship. It makes said relationships feel like it's about the sex, which would be fine, but nobody told me, man. Come on. I mean, look, who doesn't like sex? I guess people who don't, probably. Dumb question. I realize this is a small complaint in the grand scheme of things, but it's just another thing I guess I expected to see more thoroughly developed. Now that there are gigs or side jobs, and they're a little less interesting and they don't add as much to the game, but they do serve as an easy and lucrative way to try to find out or try out your new abilities and skills, or even gain some experience. Now, I do feel after you do a handful of them, they can get a little tedious, and only in that there's so many of them and it's actually seemingly impossible to complete them all. I know it is possible, but it doesn't always feel that way. The way it is supposed to work is that for everything you do, you get street cred. Street cred unlocks more jobs because, well, the idea is more people hear about you, so you unlock more jobs, but it feels like an arbitrary number that is just there to make you feel good about doing a bunch of odd jobs that don't mean anything or add up to anything. I never felt like I was unlocking tougher jobs or higher paying work. It just felt like the game was kind of reacting in a sense to my actual level and the amount of content I've completed, as if to say, you earned more work, but it just felt like a very dishonest and discreet way of, dare I say, level gating content. Where it's not actually level gating, but it's kind of gauging how much you've been playing. There's of course difficulties depending on your level for missions and stuff, but there's not necessarily anything stopping you from completing these missions. They might just be harder to complete. And maybe I'm full of shit, but that's just how street cred felt to me. More like a useless way of making me feel like I'm progressing, only to force feed me new content in a way that didn't feel natural. Another thing is, no matter how much street cred you get, nobody on the street reacts to you, like at all. I'm supposed to be the biggest, baddest merc in the city, but nobody knows who I am? It sounds small, and it is, but having NPCs walk around and saying, hey, watch out, like I didn't blow some dude's head off like a block away or have the reputation of someone who eats nails for breakfast, is indicative of how this game can feel awe-inspiring in some moments and just empty and kind of dull in others. NPCs don't even acknowledge you've done everything or anything in the world until directly interacting with them. It makes a bustling city feel lifeless.
You stink of junk food. Their bodies, they never age. But notice their eyes, cold and dead. Their corporation exists only as cover for their wicked means to live, or rather, to remain.
This brings us to the gameplay, kind of. So driving is generally just a bunch of car booty waving, or as it's properly known as fishtailing. It's to the point where I don't know if it was intentionally designed that way to just give the impression that you're constantly in a car chase type cinematic battle, but really you're just trying to go help your girl Pan Am because she needs you, and as a Pan Am simp, you respond swiftly. Gunplay works well enough. I like the various weapons and gadgets you can attach them. It also makes your weapon unique, but you can beef up its stats. Weapons get modifications that give them various damage buffs, and you can even make your weapon non-lethal completely, which I actually do like, because if you want to be the Liam Neeson of Cyberpunk without having to kill anyone, it's a great feeling. I'm glad they gave you the choice of not sacrificing an aggressive build for the sake of being non-lethal. That being said, there seems to be no benefit to doing a non-lethal playthrough unless you're hellbent on bragging to your friends about how altruistic you are. All the guns feel good, especially shotguns where you can almost just walk around like the Terminator and just blow away enemies. It's a good feeling and it doesn't get old. You also get a suite of hacking or quick hacking abilities, and they're very satisfying to pull off. It complements stealth builds very well, and it gives you an extra edge, letting you hack cameras and blind enemies and distract them. All good stuff. One of the things that I liked about the general design of Cyberpunk's areas is that it didn't ever feel like it was ever forcing you to play a certain way or follow a certain path through. You could find your own way through, and sure, it would help if the enemy AI was a little bit intelligent. They barely aggro you or even try to fight you or come after you. They just kind of shoot at you and kind of just stand there and give up, I guess. But yeah, whether you're creating the ultimate aggressive super soldier or tech-savvy stealth character, the game respects those choices. This is further enhanced by the body modifications and implants you can get for your character, and it lets you further diversify your character build. One part I want to briefly mention, it goes back to what I had said about the game lacking choice in the main story until the end, but having more in the side stories, and that is true. Maybe this isn't a gameplay specific critique, but it kind of is. I don't know. It just kind of, just bear with me here, okay? Here's where the nerd in me comes out. My power is increasing as far as playing the role of V. Sure, I would prefer a more reactive game, but if the shades or illusion of choice are done well enough, I can feel like I had a unique enough a game experience from someone else where I feel at least my inputs were respected. Cyberpunk does lean more in the illusion of choices than other games, even The Witcher before it, but I could forgive it if it gave me more role-playing options and dialogue. Often it feels like V is a passive observer in events that he is taking part in of his own free will. You usually can say something like, "This is messed up, but go along anyway," or be super into it. The only other option usually is to just not do the quest, and look, for sure that's an option, but why isn't there one to stop a character from blowing something up or following their violent impulses? It's the same with its endings, where when you pick one, you don't realize you've locked yourself into a certain variant until you beat it, and maybe that didn't make sense for your character. And that's the role-playing part, and again, even if you want to give me fake choices, at the very least let me pretend to try and talk people out of doing things. I realize it's a very niche critique, but that's just how I feel. The world design itself is very good and has a lot of verticality, and it's deep, and it feels like there's a life going on deep in the city, but it's crevices and you can go downstairs and elevators, you can get lost, but that's kind of thrilling in a way, and a few games will allow you to do that. They almost stubbornly try to hold your hand to get through though, and Cyberpunk does give you waypoints and ways to get around, but it's also not afraid to let you traverse. Visually, if the game is working, it doesn't look bad. It looks great, even at times, but overall feels inconsistent. The game never looks terrible, but also feels like it's fighting with itself to keep all it together. More on that in a bit. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not gonna even try to talk about the audio in this game. The music is good when it works, the voice acting is good when it works, and so are the effects, but they often don't work, and I'm not a sound engineer by any means necessary. But the sound for this game is just absolutely broken, I'm convinced. Cars barely making a sound while driving, audio triggering over other audio, dead silent party areas, and it's just either glitching out all the time or mixed horribly because sometimes you hear everything fine, other times it's whisper quiet, and there's no consistency to the audio. And I can't even talk about it without saying it's fine when it works, but it's not working. I hope this will be fixed with the patches, but for the sake of this review, it was just incredibly unbearable. Here's the part of the review you've been waiting for, the performance, because my god, this game has had trouble keeping it together. I played it on a PS3 and I feel lucky because of that, because I was able to play it on a platform that fared better than its last gen counterparts, but even so, like, holy shit man, my game crashed every hour or 2 hours of consistent gameplay without fail. It was almost like a feature at this point and not even a bug. It crashed while I was driving, while I was on foot, while I was talking to a character, while I was watching the credits to the fucking game. Visually smudgy characters and floating objects and guns. These visual glitches did not bother me as much or hamper the experience that badly. The part that I can't get on board with is the game crashing non-stop because I'm literally being forced to stop playing. Imagine being on your way to a cool quest and driving there already and feeling good on a Wednesday. Oh, your game crashed. That was my biggest bug playing, one that I couldn't forgive. Literally, I was paranoid to do anything at times because it gets to a point where you experience enough crashes, you're constantly on alert and on defense and hoping that the game doesn't force your hardware to combust because it's trying to keep everything in order. I mentioned this before, but the audio too, I'm convinced is just broken. It doesn't play properly, or triggers are just not going off correctly, or even sound just doesn't play when it should. And I don't know if it's an issue with the mixing, but some dialogue is just quiet, and others very loud. No consistency anywhere at all.
We got a handful of tents on a heap of sand. A hell of a promised land. I wanted something different. Better. Saul's a damned coward. He'll be the end of the clan, I'm certain.
Camouflage turrets by the gate.
A last resort. I do not wish to die there.
It's sad. And I'm sad because, again, when this game is working, it's actually very, very good. Better than average, but it's marred down by technical issues. Even after the patches, my game still crashed enough where I had to mention it here. I don't know, and like I said earlier, I'm a big fan of CD Projekt Red and a fan of their other games, and despite all my complaints and issues, I did enjoy this game quite a bit, and look forward to being able to play the non-broken version in a few months when it's patched up. One last thing I want to mention, that yes, this review was made before the patches came out, so if you're sitting there saying, why didn't he mention how the patches fix everything, that's why. I don't know how you could release a game in this state. Mind you, I was on PS5, and while my experience was better than most, it was still very noticeable that it seemed the game was just a second away from breaking apart at the seams. And I really did like this game and may continue playing it on and off, but until the patches come out, I'm probably done for now. And per my review style, I don't have a number system or a buy or pass system. What I have is, this is my review, here's what I would do if I were you. If you don't have the game yet, wait for the bugs to get fixed, or wait for them to add the alleged missing content that was cut. That doesn't bring me pleasure to do that. I wanted to give this game high praise and love it and cherish it and talk about the story in depth with friends, or even talk to you about more specific gameplay or content related topics with this game. But I can't in good conscience tell you this game is ready to be played, because it's just not. I often joke with my friends that Fallout 76, another game that had a troubled launch, is still in alpha and is moving into beta soon, and I can't wait for it to go gold. Well, Cyberpunk 2077 feels like we are playing a mostly complete early access title, and I guess if you look at it that way, it makes it easier to stomach the massive technical disappointment that this game is. A game that really does so much right and has a compelling story, characters, deep RPG system with skill and builds, a gorgeous open world that is layered and packed with content, but it just can't stop fighting itself to keep it together. I didn't mean that to sound rambly and whiny at the end at all. I really just wanted to be clear that I like this game a lot, and I respect the ambition, but I just can't be not truthful and not report on the massive amount of issues I had just on my PS5, and I was one of the lucky ones. If you do have it, I hope it was working for you, or it is working for you. Maybe wait until they patch it some more, or to go back. Got a refund? Okay, good move. If you can or are interested, see if any of the updates compel you to come back. Anyway, I'm Ryan. thanks for watching my review that you never asked for. Hope you enjoyed it. Consider subscribing, or at the very least, letting me know what you think in the comments. I love you all. Maybe. I don't know. It's complicated.